it's like, they're coming. And you see this worm bust through their basement, and they just have a full arsenal. Like, they're ready for it.
Just
like,
unloading rounds upon rounds into this thing, and then it does. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. We are back at it again. It's day 10, October 10th of our 31 days of Halloween. I'm excited for this one because this is an all-time film. This is a film that I religiously rented at our local video store. I believe it was Westwood Market Video.
Westwood Video?
Yeah, Westwood Video.
We have a little history since we're talking about it. This marquee is actually from one of our local video stores.
Yeah, Figuritos.
Figuritos Video Movies. And it's kind of cool to have something nostalgic from the community like in our set.
Yeah, it was very I very much miss going to the movies, like the video stores to rent movies and stuff. We just don't get to do that anymore, and everything's just online and streaming, and it's just like it, kind of like the magic's gone from
the magic's gone, and then you had a community of people that would go and refer movies to you. Oh, did you see that? It's pretty good. This one's pretty good. Come get this one. You know what I mean?
Check this out. If you like that movie, you're gonna love this movie, and then go to the back and grab a movie, and it's just like always a surprise. And it was a fun thing to do as a child too, just because like your parents would be like, okay, guess where we're going? We're going to the video store, and then we'd be so excited. So, but that's enough about memory lane.
Yeah.
We are talking about Tremors, of course. Tremors is a 1990 film. It is fantastic. Stars Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon, amongst a bunch of other actors.
There's actually a country singer in this, Reba McEntire.
Reba McEntire. This is like one of the first roles that I know that she's been in. So that was exciting to see her.
We also had Michael Gross from Family Ties.
Yeah, Bert. Yeah. So this movie's amazing, and I can't wait to do this episode about it. So before we get into it, just remind everybody, please, if you want to support us, you can go over to our YouTube channel, hit that like and subscribe button if you're watching on Spotify, or if you're already here on YouTube, please just, a couple clicks down below. Helps us out. Also, you can go over to patreon.com/thecalvincam and join one of our 3 tiers over there. We really appreciate the donations. And it's only going to make the show get bigger and better as time goes on. And we have so much great stuff in store, and I'm really excited about it all. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So Tremors, this movie, I think, has some of the best pacing, and I feel like it's just such a nice, it's not too long. It's like an hour and a half, and it's very just like consolidated into like, hey, this is happening here. They're dealing with this. They got to figure it out in the movie.
Yeah. I really like the sidekick with Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon. Like, their chemistry in this movie is just absolutely perfect from the moment the movie starts till the end of the movie. I mean, it's a perfect circle, and it goes all the way to the end. It doesn't stop. The comedy in this movie is outstanding, and even though it's a comedy horror, it's just really, really well done. And those guys like carry the movie, and they're great actors. And Kevin Bacon, we know he's a great actor, and I love Fred Ward.
Yeah, R.I.P. Fred Ward, right?
Yeah. One of my favorite movies is this one that he's in, and there's also a movie called Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. It's kind of like a movie back in the day. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. I really like you said, their buddy dynamic is really great. What are they? They're like contractors, like for hire?
Yeah, I think they're contractors. They live in that small town, so they're kind of like bound to the town. But you hear them talking about they want to get out of this rut, and they want to make more of themselves. So like they want to be more than just this town, because they've said, well, we want to shoot higher.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Fred Ward is like, because Kevin Bacon in this movie, he's kind of an underachiever, and like Fred Ward goes, we can do better. We can do better. Let's do better.
Yeah.
And then the story goes before the whole thing with the Tremors is they pick up, they talk about it. He goes, I can't believe we're leaving town. And then they get sucked back into it with seeing one of the local guys stuck on top of a, he was up on top of a power line tower,
yeah.
and he's stuck because he's been getting away from these tremors.
The Tremors, they're after them. Yeah, so the population of that town's got to be like 15 people.
Yeah,
like,
it's really small.
It's like there's a convenience store owner. There's one convenience store that's like basic needs, and then there's like maybe a couple of couples. There's the young teenage boy. What's his name? I forget his name, but they're all like he's kind of like a boy who cries wolf through the movie because he likes to just like mess around and joke and make fun. And I love that like Fred Ward's character constantly has this battle with him, and he's just like, one of these days somebody's gonna kick your ass. Like,
yeah. And then you have the other couple with the little girl and the pogo stick.
Yeah, and funny thing enough about the little girl is that is Ariana Richards. Most people recognize her from Jurassic Park. She's Lex.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So 3 years
I did not
after
know
this
that.
movie, she has the role of Lex in Jurassic Park. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, so she's kind of used to the monster genre. If you want to consider that like a monster film, which I do.
Isn't this considered a creature feature, though?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, monster film, creature feature. I'd even like if you want to get into the like logistics of Jurassic Park, I'd even consider Jurassic Park like a horror movie. The book certainly is. But back to Tremors. One of my favorite parts of this movie is just the collaboration of Bert and Reba. I think that those two characters are fantastic. A fantastic couple that gun loving, shooting, hunting Americans. You know what I mean? And I love it.
Yeah, you see that good part where they're actually stuck in their basement. And they're like, and Kevin Bacon's like, they're coming. And you see this worm bust through their basement, and they just have a full arsenal. Like they're ready for it.
Just
like,
unloading rounds upon rounds
Yeah.
into this thing, and then it takes all the way up until he busts out the elephant gun to finally like end it. So
yeah, I thought that scene was awesome.
Another thing that I really liked is just it's such a different film. Like. Because the horror is coming from underground. And this movie I watched actually with my son recently because he's never seen it. So I was like, okay, this seems like, a decent film for horror to start him off with. I rented it a lot when I was like younger than he is.
I was about to tell you, I was in 8th grade going to be a freshman in high school. I saw this movie in the theaters.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I saw this I saw this at State Theater.
Nice.
Before it closed down when it was still open.
Wow.
I saw this movie there.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. Yeah, I would have killed to see this in theaters. This is a great movie. But yeah, like he had no idea. I didn't tell him anything about this movie. So like just going into it, he was just kind of like, what's happening? Like, why did he get sucked into the ground? Why is the farmer guy whose like head they find under his hat? Like he was just like trying to figure it out the whole time. And you only get the glimpse of the worm of not the worm, but its tongue, because it's like a hydra kind of, and throughout the film. So he's like, is there like sand snakes or something like that? And then it takes, finally when we see the grab boy for the first time in full glory, he's like, oh my God.
Well, they find out a little bit about what they're dealing with. They're like, it's a snake, because they were trying to leave and
it got hitched. Yeah.
It hitched to it and grabbed them. And like, I can't. He's like, I'm stuck. He's like, well, don't blow out the clutch. It's just like funny that you're having this comedic thing while they're trying to get out of this situation, which is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. I also think that it's got some pretty good, pretty solid deaths for a creature feature. A lot of suspenseful deaths, like leading up to like figuring out what is the threat. And then I love like once we do finally see the full size of the worms, like after it crashes through the cement wall, and like I think Kevin Bacon digs up the body and he's like, I found the ass. Like,
yeah. And then you have the whole I think that geologist that's out there, And you see that chemistry kind of building like with her and Kevin Bacon's
Yeah.
character. So it's kind of cool.
Another really one of my favorite parts is when they are using the boulders to stay safe, and they begin pole vaulting. Love that scene. I think that it's just like a beautiful scene, and I think that it's choreographed really well because they all three pole vault at the same time in a couple of shots, and I was like, that's beautifully like choreographed. That's awesome. So I really like that. And then yeah, this movie's just like all around incredible. So I think it's got a pretty good like soundtrack score to it.
It's one of those movies that Reba McEntire does the end credit song.
Yes, she
so
does.
It's just like
yeah,
it's just awesome to see that.
it's a great sci-fi horror film. And of course, like with a little bit of like prehistoric knowledge, like set into it because the Graboids have been predating like dinosaurs. Apparently, that's what the geologist says. They are just like unrecorded creatures. And then the series goes on to have like 5 or 6 or 7 more movies.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of sequels that actually haven't seen any of the sequels.
I've seen only the second one, and the second one after the or I saw the third one too. But after the second one, it is like a hard decline. In quality, in effects, in production
and
in
writing,
general.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but I know that like Michael Gross is in like all of them.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, he's like in all of them.
He's the token Bert.
Yeah. So he goes on to be in the rest of the movies. Fred Ward continues into the second movie, but Kevin Bacon is no longer in the second movie. And I highly recommend watching the second movie if you have time. Like it's really good. But besides that, like I don't really have a whole lot left to say about this movie besides go out and watch it, because like this is a great time all in all. It's an hour and a half. Like that's an easy watch movie. So.
And it's just a thrilling, it's got its horror elements, but it's a thrilling ride.
Yeah.
It's just a great movie.
Yeah, so if I were to critique this movie, rate this movie on my loving of it, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 because I love this movie. So critically, I don't even care to like rate it critically.
I bet it's critically, I bet it's pretty good. I bet it's not, I think it's like probably average.
Well, I was looking on IMDb,
guess.
and IMDb gave it like a 7.2 out of 10, which is good. That's a good rating. So, and I'm sure Rotten Tomatoes is pretty high. So, what would you give it?
I'm alongside you on this one as well. This is a 5.
Yeah,
this is a 5. Everything about this, to the characters, the writing, the pacing, cinematography, great for the time period, early 90s. I saw this movie in the theater and I loved it. So it's an all-time classic movie for me. So it's a 5.
Got that nostalgia feel.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into some fun facts before we end our episode today. So I have them right here for you. I'll pull them up. We'll begin reading them off. Ready? Kevin Bacon originally resented being in Tremors, only agreeing to do it because he needed money for his new marriage and upcoming newborn child. When the film was not financially successful, Bacon feared his career was over, and in following years would refuse to acknowledge the film's existence, and even call it the worst thing I ever did. However, Bacon would eventually come around to Tremors, calling the filming of Tremors to be the single most fun time I've ever had making a movie in my entire career. In 2012, and later admitting in a 2020 interview, when I was making Tremors, I was very depressed and at a low point in my life, and I kind of blamed Tremors for all of that. I was bitter against it. I thought it was a career killer. I never watched my movies more than once. Some of my movies I've never even seen before, and have no desire to. But I've watched Tremors a dozen times. I love it so much. I spent years trying to capture the same energy we had on the set of Tremors. It's one of my favorite films of all time.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Bacon's in a lot of movies.
He's in a lot of movies. And I know a lot of actors who actually don't watch what they're in. Joaquin Phoenix doesn't watch any of his movies.
Oh, he doesn't either?
Yeah, Johnny Depp doesn't watch any of his movies. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Steven Spielberg. He directs movies, but doesn't really watch his movies that he directs, right?
He rarely watches his movies.
I remember we had a fun fact on our ET episode back in the day that he actually likes watching this movie, right?
Yeah, it's one of his only movies that he actually like comes back to visit like pretty consistently.
Okay.
So, yeah. Let's see. Although Tremors was not a big hit during its theatrical run, the film became a runaway smash in the home video market and ultimately tripled its original box office gross with VHS sales and rentals.
That's funny because we just talked about VHS in the beginning of this episode.
I feel like it was in the prime air of the video store.
It was because it's the late 80s, early 90s, 1990.
Yeah, 1990. So there are only 2 interior sets in the entire movie: Walter's store and Bert and Heather's basement. Every other shot is exterior. That's cool. That's cool.
It is cool.
Easy production, probably. Not a whole lot of like props.
I mean, they spent most of the time at the end of the movie on the roof of the buildings until Kevin Bacon decides to run and get the bulldozer and bring him away.
The gag at the beginning of the film, where Val misses a staple 8 times with his hammer, was not entirely scripted and was Kevin Bacon's spontaneous idea. Fred Ward's reaction was completely genuine.
That's funny.
So yeah, like we said before, this one first film as an actress for country singer Reba. Let's see. Michael Gross was the only star to show up at the 30th anniversary celebration of Tremors, January 18th and 19th of 2020, in Lone Pine, California, where the film was shot on location. Oh, that's sad but cool. Like, I get it. He was the only one, but like, that sucks. They should all. Fred Ward was passed away, but Kevin Bacon's around, so they're all around. What am I talking about?
I was about to say Reba wasn't there with him. So.
No. Test audience loved the film, but would repeatedly chant kiss her" at the end. The studio paid for a quick reshoot featuring Valentine McKee and Rhonda Liebeck kissing. Let's see. One more for you. Okay, ready? One of their concerns with the original script was how a lower budget film could afford so many shots of the big worms. They resolved this issue by adding tentacles to the worms' mouths, which were a lot cheaper to create and shoot. Some were articulated creations worked with cables, and others are simply hand puppets that Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. were adamantly opposed to until they saw how frequently they were the ideal choice. So that's cool.
That is cool. So you have a little bit of practicality with practical effects with puppetry and stuff.
Yeah, so that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope that you go out and watch Tremors, rent it on whatever streaming website, or buy the physical copy of this movie.
Or go out and find a VHS player and find an old copy of it and watch it.
Yes.
Just for nostalgic purposes.
But yeah, that's going to be it for day 10. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow in the next episode.